Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome for Secretary Mike Pompeo.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Oh, my goodness. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you all. Thank you. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Chris. Thank you for that applause. It gets me really nervous when I get that much applause before I speak. The bar is set high. It is truly terrific to be with you here. And I won't make the same mistake. I know exactly what state I'm in. Thanks for having me here in Maine. By the way, I also won't make the same mistake. It is not okay to have a minor incursion into Ukraine. Not okay. You all here tonight is incredibly heartening for me too. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to be with you as we're working on something that matters to each of us, to our families. We're here tonight, this Lincoln-Reagan dinner. We shouldn't forget those two names. Never let them take them off your schools. If you think I'm crazy, Jefferson and Washington have already been taken down from schools. I have a special affection for President Reagan. Much like you, Chris, I came into the United States Army with him as my commander-in-chief. He was my president. There was a political enmity for him that I certainly saw in my time in service. And my wife would always say, you know, Mike, I know this is tough. You should just smile more. And the good news for you is tonight I can, because I am no longer America's senior diplomat. You get Mike Pompeo unplugged. So we'll have a good time tonight. It reminded me when you were talking, I was the 70th Secretary of State. President Trump was the 45th president. So there was a lot more turnover in my gig than his. And every morning I would check my cell phone to make sure that I was still going to have my badge work when I was swiped in the morning. My son, there was a particularly difficult moment that on back-to-back days, the New York Times and then the Washington Post had big headlines. Mike Pompeo, worst Secretary of State in history. So my son called the second time and said, hey, Dad, did you read the Washington Post this morning? And I said, no, son, I'm not allowed to. My cardiologist said it wasn't healthy. So I've broken that habit. He said, well, they said you were the worst Secretary of State of all time. And I did some research. There's this fellow named Elihu Washburn. He was a Secretary of State. But he only lasted 11 days. Surely you're better than him. So we started a club called We're Number Two. Thinking, you know, so many of you tonight have been so kind. You've said to me, thank you for my service to America. It was an enormous privilege to be your senior spy and your senior diplomat. Every day I got up in the morning and there was all kinds of noise in Washington. The media would say all kinds of things about us, but I was focused on you, on doing the things that would make America more prosperous and more secure. And while no administration gets it right every day, you know, I had a few of you say, I'll bet you're glad to be out of that pressure and out of the fire and out of the center of that. Truth of the matter is I miss it dearly. The truth of the matter, this has been a long 15 months for all of us to watch the direction that the nation has taken. But it's great to be here in New Hampshire to watch you all in true fighting form and fighting spirits, knowing that you know the things that matter to America. You know, I saw the other day, right, President Biden went out and said, he told some soldiers we were headed to Ukraine. He made a bunch of things that he talked about trying to eliminate Vladimir Putin, and his team had to walk it back. I try to think of us walking back statements from Donald Trump. What comes to mind is former Secretary of State. The truth is we were serious, and we were thoughtful, and we were determined. And we always, every day, put America first for every second of our time. I I would travel the world, and sometimes people didn't like that idea that we would put America first. And so I'd meet with a leader, and they might give me a little bit of a hard time with that. And when I was, for example, I'm in Bangladesh, I would say to the Prime Minister there, Mr. Prime Minister, I assume you're Bangladesh first. I think your people are counting on that. Each of us had a responsibility, and ours was to you. And each of the 7 times I had the privilege to raise my right hand and defend this most precious document, the American Constitution, and to defend you against enemies both foreign and domestic, I was proud to declare that I was doing my work every day on your behalf. Look, we were a unique administration. You all laugh. I'm the only machine shop owner that will ever be the Secretary of State. I am probably the only person who was ever the president of their homeowners association who will ever be the Secretary of State. We came from, talk about a crazy political battle. Try and get shake shingles out of your neighborhood. These are big fights. Look, the truth of the matter is that it was time to shake things up in America. You all knew that. You all knew that America needed to be awakened to the realities that our families are facing all across this country. And you're seeing what happens when we don't do that. You all responded with a historic victory for President Trump, and then I was blessed to have been tapped by him for my opportunity to serve. When they threatened American lives, we took out Qasem Soleimani. When they tried to take your money, to take the lives of the unborn, we said that makes no sense for America. When they held Americans hostage, we worked tirelessly to bring them home. And you should know tonight that one of those Americans was Amr Farkuri, a devoted father and husband who was kidnapped in Lebanon by the Iranians, by Hezbollah, and held hostage in early 2019. My team at the State Department worked diligently to bring him home from those thugs. Sadly, we got Amr back, but he passed away from his mistreatment after just 5 months returning to his family. His family is here tonight. They are with us. I was glad to be able to meet with them. I want to thank you for your continuing service for the other families. Where are you all? You all are amazing. You are honoring his memory with your foundation. You are helping other families who are in a similar situation where Americans have been wrongly detained. You know, one of the most important moments of my time as Secretary of State was my second trip to North Korea. My first trip was quite an adventure. My first trip, I was the CIA director. It was the one thing that didn't leak during my 4 years in service. Everything else leaked. I traveled to North Korea over Easter of 2018. I left on Good Friday morning. I came back late Sunday night. I got back early Monday by the time we landed. I was a CIA director at the time, and the president one day, I was briefing him on North Korea, and he reminded me that President Obama had told him that the most serious thing that we would face was the threat from Chairman Kim and from North Korea. We took that seriously. It was a challenge. Their nuclear weapons were real and serious. And so this day, he said to me, Mike, can we talk to them? And I said, yes, Mr. President, we can. He said, good. I want you to talk to them. I want you to talk to Chairman Kim, and I want you to tell him that you want to come see him. Roger that, sir. So I left. We communicated with them. I came back and said, Mr. President, we had a good conversation. I said, we're going to talk to them again tomorrow. What would you like me to say? He said, well, tell them that you want to come see them, and I want to come see them, and I want them to do it in that order. Roger, Mr. President, I'll go first. We set up a process which changed North Korea's policy. Many of you might not have even noticed that last week, or 2 weeks ago now, they fired the longest missile they have ever fired. I fear that they will go back and conduct nuclear testing too. While we weren't ultimately successful at getting them to give up their nuclear weapons, we had put them in a place and reached an agreement that kept us all safer by getting them to refuse to conduct those missile tests and those nuclear tests as well. Good work, good diplomacy, and amazing leadership by President Trump. On the second trip, I told Chairman Kim at 4:30 in the afternoon, I said, Mr. Chairman, it is my expectation and the President of the United States' expectation that when I leave here, there will be 3 more Americans on my airplane than when I landed. You'll recall that Otto Warmbier, who had been detained there, had been returned only to die from his maltreatment in the hands of the North Korean thugs. When I said that to Chairman Kim, he pulled out a cigarette, took a puff, and through a translator said, "This meeting is over." I got up. We had accomplished our business for the day. We had set the schedule for President Trump's summit with him that ultimately took place in Singapore. And I left, and I headed back to the airport. And when I arrived at the airplane, I had no idea if my request of Chairman Kim would have been honored. I got back to the plane and saw my team, and the team said, "Sir, about 20 minutes ago, they came and got our consular affairs official, and they whisked them off in a white panel van." And about 20 minutes after that, this panel van came back onto the tarmac and stopped about 100 yards short of our airplane. And the door flew open. And out of that panel van watched 3 Americans. It was... It's still emotional for me to talk about. We thought that they might have been in poor condition and they were walking. Indeed, the last 15 yards they were running. And when they climbed on the plane, we largely left them be, but one of them came up to say that when he saw that beautiful airplane, your airplane, a white over blue airplane with the seal of the United States of America, he prayed to his Lord and Savior and thanked them for the work that he had done, our Savior, and that America had not ever forgotten them, not for a minute. You know, one of the raps on our administration is that people around the world didn't like us very much. Right? That we were too tough or too brutal, or we didn't care about diplomacy, that we weren't into the effort to build friends and alliances. But the truth of the matter is nothing could be further from the truth. It is the case that we didn't care too much if they liked us. We wanted them to respect us and treat us the way that America deserved to be treated. When they did, we would help them be successful as well. We were very clear about this. We worked diligently to enhance religious freedom around the world, and we worked tirelessly to create opportunities for Americans to be safe as they traveled the world. I must say, it has been hard to watch them undo so many of our good policies. I know that Ambassador Scott Brown, a great New Hampshire guy, is here somewhere tonight. Where's Ambassador? Somewhere? Yeah? He did great work in Australia as we were pushing back on the Chinese Communist Party, the singular greatest threat to the way we live here in the United States today. We were the first administration to actually acknowledge that China wasn't a place where if we sold them more trinkets or bought more stuff from them, that they'd behave more like we do. Instead, they've stolen more stuff from us and spied on us more, and then unleashed a virus on the world and on the United States for which they desperately need to be held accountable. We tackled some of the world's hardest problems. For 25 years, there wasn't a single country that recognized the right of Israel to exist. And we got 4 to do it. We built out the Abraham Accords. And we did it with us. We did it. Thank you. We did it with a singular focus. The focus was on you. We knew the Judeo-Christian tradition of the United States of America, and we knew the nation of Israel was our greatest friend and the only democracy in the Middle East, and we should help them when they are threatened by the Iranian regime. Second, we understood that the Ayatollah wanted to wipe Israel and the United States off the face of the earth, and that they were not someone that we should sit across the table with and cut a deal which would permit them to get a nuclear weapon. That's happening in Vienna even as we sit here tonight. And we knew that we would need to isolate them and punish them and deny them the resources, the very resources they used to underwrite Hezbollah so they could capture Americans and threaten Israel, the resources they used with the Shia militias in Iraq that threatened the embassy and fired rockets on American diplomats, the same resources that they used to conduct assassination efforts all across the world and continue to do, even here inside the United States of America. We were serious about defending the things that matter. We didn't talk a big game and carry a little stick. We talked about the things that mattered to us here at home. We talked about the things that we were prepared to defend and actually do, and our deeds demonstrated that we were prepared to protect that. When you don't do that, when you act just the opposite, when you make high-minded statements and use lofty rhetoric, but aren't prepared to use America's full economic might, then you present real risk. What happened in Afghanistan in the summer of last year was a tragedy that did not need to happen. Does anybody? I'll take an audience quiz. Does anybody guess what President Trump wanted to do in Afghanistan? Yeah, dozens of tweets. He wanted out. He wanted our young boys and girls home, and I completely agreed with that mission set. It was time for us to get our kids back home, but we knew this much. We needed to do it in a way that protected America's interests so that we were never attacked in the way that we were 9/11 from that place again. We needed to get every American home. We needed to get our equipment out of there before the Chinese got their hands on it. And we needed to leave in a way that honored the men and women who served there. I was the guy. I was the negotiator with the Taliban. These are evil, bad dudes. They were the most miserable meetings I had as my time as Secretary of State. That may not be true. There were a few meetings with State Department officials that were unpleasant too. But these were terrible human beings. But we were trying to deliver an outcome that mattered to you so that your sons and daughters wouldn't have to go fight and risk their lives in this place. And we could keep America safe from terrorism there. President Biden came in and he ripped up this plan. He destroyed the deterrence model that we had built. For the last 15 months of our administration, not a single American was attacked by the Taliban. It wasn't because I was so good looking and charming. It was because we were determined. And when they acted in ways that were inconsistent with the things that America demanded, we imposed real costs on them. We had 13 Americans killed as we left Afghanistan. I pray for each and every one of their families every day. And I want to share with you tonight as well. I talked to veterans, guys and girls who served in Afghanistan, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. Some of them are pretty down about the way we left. I want to just, on your behalf tonight, I want you to know, please go home. If you have family members that serve there, or you have friends or cousins, or some of you may have, please know this. Your service was noble. You saved American lives. I saw it with the plots that were taken down when I was the CIA director. Your service was lovely and self-sacrificial, and you did good work for America. Do not let the way it ended in Afghanistan diminish your efforts protecting America. I love you. The former Secretary of State loves you, and we know your work mattered. I was especially nervous tonight with General Leslie here at age 98 coming out to hear me speak. Anybody who graduated from West Point in 1945 is someone who I honor and respect, and so I hope I do you honor by my remarks tonight. You should know that I was also mindful that while I was serving, working on the national security projects, I always knew this much. The most powerful tool that I had as the Secretary of State was you all. You may say, what do you mean by that? So it mattered that we had a very capable military and that President Trump supported a strong Department of Defense. I was really proud of what we did to help them make sure they had the money and resources to do their work. But my most significant tool was the freedom and respect of every human being for each other here in the United States and a powerful economy here at home. When I traveled, every world leader wanted to meet with me. Every president, every prime minister, they didn't want to meet with Mike. They wanted to meet with America's Secretary of State. They wanted to meet with the person that they knew, whether they could admit it publicly or not, could make life better for their people. That stemmed from the things you all do every day. Whether it's the work you do in your professional life, helping your company be successful, taking care of the families that work in those businesses, Whether it's the work you do in your community, helping your city or your county or your party here in Hillsborough County, helping them be more successful. Whether it's the work you do in your faith community. You didn't talk about my most proud biographical point is I'm the father of Nick, who's now 31. I mentioned him earlier. He both kept me humble and kept me going on the bad days. He would always remind me, he'd send me a note. Dad, you climbed off that plane in Senegal last night at 3 a.m. Comb your hair. Yeah. Only family. But the other thing that I was so proud of is the work that I did. My wife and I taught 5th grade Sunday school. And every now and again we come across some of those kids who were 5th graders. Now I look at them and think, gosh, you've gotten old. The things we do in our community, the things we do in our local places, helping good candidates run for city council, helping school board members take on school boards that are teaching our kids junk in our schools. I fought against the Chinese Communist Party. We took down the efforts of the Ayatollah in Iran. We fought against Chairman Kim. We took on Maduro in Venezuela and the leadership in Cuba. All of those are real challenges, but they're from outside. The thing most likely to change the way we live in America is the things we get wrong here at home. And I want to make sure you all know that you are all focused on that every day. I've been heartened these 15 months. I've been out traveling all across the country helping candidates be successful. Don't forget that folks will start voting as soon as Labor Day in general election across the country. I was in Tennessee just a few months ago, and there was this fella who came up to me. He looked to be 70 years old. And he said, Mike, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And he said, I'm running for school board. And I said, that's awesome. And he said, I don't even know where they hold school board meetings, but I'm running for school board. He said, I'm running for school board because they're teaching my grandkids garbage. And I'm not going to stand for it, not while I still have an ounce of breath in me. These are the kind of things. These are the kind of things that will help us do what we need to do. President Trump went to Washington. He disrupted. Now we have to defend the things that we achieved. We all know this. Don't let them gaslight you. It's hard. My son works in a place that's pretty liberal too. And it's not Smith, so everybody knows who he is. He's that guy's son. Don't let them tell us stories that it's okay for men to be in women's sports. Don't let them Don't let them tell us it's okay if inflation's only 7%. But it is unheard of in America that we have stores that have empty shelves. These are political decisions about denying America the capacity to produce its own affordable energy, to setting up rules and regulations that deny companies the chance to grow their businesses. And they made it really hard for far too long for us to do the simple things like travel and meet and be with our church members in our parishes and in our synagogues all across America. Let's get back to fighting for these things we know to be self-evident. This is all the work that you all will do here in New Hampshire. It's what we're for as Republicans. The president the other day said, what do you all stand for? You're always just attacking me. We know what we stand for. We know the things that have made America great. They didn't come from Washington. Our rights came from our Creator, and the good things that happen in our community happen because of the work that you all do. So let's get back to those amazing traditions. One of them is that you have the first primary in the nation. Sign me up. I know the Democrats have a different vision. Keep trucking along. Last thought. My wife will joke sometimes that I'll talk about the challenges that our country faces. These are difficult things. These are hard times for many middle-class Americans trying to figure out how to put food on the table and do the simple things. Know this. My wife will say, boy, when people left the room, they would have to take Xanax. Right? It all seemed pretty down. I lived for 4 years in some of the darkest corners of the world. The most difficult problems facing our nation came to my desk, and the really hard ones, I went to the president. He helped me figure out how we would resolve them. But there is no doubt that we've had a good run in America these last 250 years. As this shining city on the hill is the most exceptional nation in the history of civilization, we've been a beacon to every person in the world. We're going to have another 250 years. I'm convinced of it. We don't divide by race. We don't divide by gender. We simply tell everyone that we want a more united, freer place here at home. This is how Republicans unite this nation, and I'm convinced that we're going to do it. And when we do, I'm confident that people all across America will reward those who choose to run under the Republican banner. My mother told me when I was headed off to West Point, she wasn't as excited about it as my father was. We were out in California. Yes, I left voluntarily. I knew even at 18 I could tell things were headed the wrong direction there. When we were at the airport, at Los Angeles airport, my mom said to me, she said, "Don't let them wear you down. You're a grinder, Mike. You wear them down. Let's wear them down." We should do it with a smile. We should do it with love in our hearts. And we should do it because we know our value set is the right value set. And we should be bold and fearless and never give an inch in defending those values for our country. Some of you may have had the chance to go to Langley, where the CIA is headquartered. When you walk in that front door, you see the CIA logo. You've seen it in every good spy movie. When you walk to that insignia, to your right is the memorial wall. On that wall are stars that represent the CIA officers who served and died in the line of service, defending us. Almost all doing so in dark places without any of you knowing their name. Indeed, there's a book that sits under those stars, and often the star has no name under it because they were operating in a clandestine way, so nobody ever gets to know the name of their service. Often, decades later, we can put the names in. These men and women were all on a mission. They're on a mission that brings us all here tonight. They knew that our purposes in the world were vital, and they knew the work that they were doing, whatever nation they might have been doing it, was about America. It was about American greatness. It was about the American people. And they knew that the United States was a force for good every place that we went in the world, and they wanted to be a part of that. And so I'll end by quoting our party's founder, who said that with malice toward none, with charity for all, and with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let's get to work. It is wonderful to be with all of you here in New Hampshire today. We've got big elections coming up. Pray for these candidates, help these candidates. Let's be successful. Let's restore the deepest, most fundamental, important traditions of our nation. And when we do, His glory will be ours, and this nation will once again be the greatest nation in the history of civilization. Thanks for having me here tonight. May the God bless you all.